You ever read books before?
You know, I've read one or two.
What if I told you books that I had read that I would like you to read?
That's the premise of the video!
Whoa!
We still don't have an intro. Welcome to the Bookcases. I am Taylor.
I'm Steven.
And we are a mess, but we're having fun. This is our 5 for 25, where we talk about 5 books that we really want to read in 2025. But instead of talking about 5 books that we want to read ourselves, we're going to talk about 5 books that I think you should read.
And I'm going to tell you 5 books I've read before so that we can have more in common.
I presume that you also have justifications beyond I've read them before.
Not really.
Oh. Well, this will be a very one-sided video then. Listen, you've read these books and like them, presumably.
Sure.
I pitched this video idea and you said something along the lines of, but you've read so many more books than me.
She has.
I think that this will still be fun. Who wants to go first?
No.
Okay. I guess I'm going first. So, the first book that I'm going to tell you to read is not actually in my stack here that I have on my lap. It is the book that I have been telling you to read every time video games come up, even tangentially, in conversation. And that is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin.
She does mention it frequently. I will talk about video games, and she will mention, you should read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow.
Here's the thing. If you have not read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, you do not need to be a gamer. You do not need to be a fan of video games. You do not need to know anything about video game development to enjoy the book. You should read the book anyway. It's really, really good. But if you are a gamer, if you do like to watch somebody insult videos and documentaries on game design, you will get even more out of the book, I think, than a layperson would. I said this in a video I filmed recently on TikTok, but there is a reason that this book came out in the 20s, and yet it is on the New York Times list of the best books of the 21st century so far. Like, it's really good. It's that good. I don't know what else to say. I've tried to tell you to read this book so many times.
You told me yesterday.
But,
Well, it's my turn now.
it is your turn.
I'm going to have you read something that you were planning on reading anyway.
That is
But,
true.
The Adventures of Amina Al-Sirafi is a very fun book. It is by, let me butcher this name, Shannon Chakraborty? Chakraborty.
S.A. Chakraborty, also the author of the Daevabad trilogy, which we both need to read. It's supposed to be excellent.
This is a fascinating book for me because this is one of my picked up at the bookstore on a whim choices, because you saw this book and you recognized it.
And I
was
did,
like,
and I was like, oh, that's a maybe I'll pick that one up on this bookstore run, and then you picked it up, which means I didn't have to spend my book budget on it, which was great.
I had my interest piqued, and this book is a very interesting book. There are some things in here that I didn't see coming, things that you will definitely see coming because you are far more familiar with just things as far as books go, and as far as the directions that certain characters might take. But there's this is one of those books that for me was like maybe 6 or 7 out of 10, and then it pulled off something at the end, and I was like, okay, you can be an 8 out of 10. That's okay.
Nice. You rate things out of 10.
It's basically the same thing, just like split
I mean,
the
true.
difference.
I rate things out of 5, but I give half-star ratings. I don't give quarter-star ratings. I know Storygraph lets you do it. I don't do it.
Do you want me to rate out of 7?
No.
This is a very good 5 out of 7 book.
Okay.
Maybe a 6 if I'm feeling good.
How good are you feeling?
Pretty good.
All
6.
right. I'm just going to go ahead and go into the next book that I don't have physically and just follow that one along. This is also a player's choice book for me because I couldn't decide which of these books I wanted you to read more because they are both by the same author. They're by Anthony Horowitz, who is one of my favorite authors. Anthony Horowitz he wrote the Alex Rider series, so he's written great YA stuff, but I love his adult mysteries also, and you are a Poirot fan. Which is why I think you would really like Magpie Murders. So Magpie Murders is about an editor who like an editor for a publishing company, and she is editing the next Atticus Punt story. So she is editing basically Agatha Christie-esque mystery novels for this crotchety mystery writer, and then it's a story within a story, so she has to solve a murder mystery in the real world, but we also get to read the manuscript that she edits, and the manuscript ties into the real world, into the real world mystery. So it is both a great contemporary mystery, but also Anthony Horowitz emulates Agatha Christie's writing style very well, and when you're just reading the Atticus Punt portion of the book, it's like you're reading a Poirot novel, and it's great. And that's why I think you'd really like it. However, that is also why I think you would really like Moriarty, which is not a story within a story. Moriarty is just a Sherlock Holmes story, but set after the Reichenbach fall, in the time when everybody thinks Sherlock Holmes is dead. So Sherlock Holmes is not actually a character. It is about some random detectives who are trying to track down a criminal that Moriarty was working with. And so Moriarty and Holmes's deaths like hang over the entire book. And it also emulates Doyle's writing really well. I think Anthony Horowitz has a very good voice on his own, but he's also excellent at imitating and emulating other voices. So player's choice on whether you should read which of those this year. I want you to read them both.
Probably I'll do both.
But you can pick one. You can pick which one
depending
you want to do.
Depending on how my time goes.
Exactly. They're both great. I love Anthony Horowitz.
So for my next selection, I too am cheating. I would like you to read the first Discworld book and the second Discworld book.
The first Discworld book and the first good Discworld book.
That's not quite fair.
That's mean, I know. I just had to make the joke.
Some people would say that. So the first Discworld book, The Color of Magic, is fascinating because it is not what Discworld would go on to be. It's a lot more kind of almost serialized. It's a pastiche on the kinds of fantasy that was popular at the time, sort of Conan the Barbarian, Elric of Melonbone stuff, and it's really full out parody. And then the second book, The Light Fantastic, is a direct sequel to where the first book, The Color of Magic, leaves off, but The Light Fantastic is its own story that has a much more...
It's taking itself seriously now.
That's a strong...
That's maybe too strong a phrasing. It's no longer full-out parody. It's living in its own world and its own world building a little more.
It's a world that now has to sort of serve itself. It is not a world whose purpose is to be a pastiche. It's a world that is meant to be goofy, but it is meant to be a world that functions.
Yeah. How many Discworld books have you read?
Just these two, but the experience of reading these back to back is a very interesting one.
And then, you know what? Because I will catch up to you, and then we can start reading them at the same time. So, next up, we have another book that you purchased. I did not spend our hard-earned cash on this book. You spent our hard-earned cash on this book, and then I read it and you didn't. This is How We Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. Everything you have heard about how good this book is true. It's fantastic. Read it. It's not long. Here's the thing. Some people say, oh, it's confusing. I didn't find it that confusing. It doesn't tell you what's going on, like, flat out, world-wise. But A, what's going on world-wise is not what this book is about. And B, you can figure it out. Like, by halfway through, you know what's going on. Maybe that's just me as a Doctor Who and time travel fan talking and being like, time travel isn't that hard to wrap your head around. But truly, I don't think this book is as confusing as some people say. Everything else that people say about this book, 100% true. I need to reread it, honestly. It's the type of book that you can just like read over and over and over again. And it's not long. And like, look at the margins. Look at the margins on that bad boy.
It's been on my to-do list for a while and I haven't done it. So now that it is becoming an obligation, I will be much more likely to read it.
Yes.
So at this point, I have run out of physical books. I have not read as many novels as you, especially in the last few years.
Yes, I read about 100 a year right now.
But something I have read a lot of is comic books, because that was my haunt back when I was a teenager, going to the library every week on my little bicycle to get more things to put in my little drawstring bag. The first item that I am going to, because I want to reread it myself, but I would also like you to experience it, because I think it's just a fascinating story. And it's partly because we saw a video essay that mentioned it. But Batman The Long Halloween, the anthology of the whole story, is one of the most interesting Batman stories.
I put it on hold on Libby. It's the type of thing that has a really long wait list on Libby, but when it pops up, you can bet that I will be reading it. I am a big fan of the Pattinson movie, The Batman. I really liked it. It's just a very good depiction of the character, I think.
It is.
And I know that the Batman draws a lot from Year One, but it also does draw a lot from The Long Halloween.
Yes. The Long Halloween leans really deep into the mystery aspect of Batman.
And I love a mystery.
Because the whole thing is, kind of the through line is this calendar killer. Who is this person who's killing people only on holidays? And it is not the Batman villain who only kills on holidays, who I believe is Holiday, who takes sort of a Hannibal Lecter role in this story.
I need you to understand how absurd the phrase, they have to find this person who's killing people only on holidays. Now, it's not the Batman villain who kills people only on holidays.
Named Holiday.
Named Holiday. Batman, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh yeah, this is some real superhero cape bullcrap. So it's one of those seminal Batman stories.
Yeah. And I don't think I've ever read a Batman comic, actually. I have watched all of the movies, but I have never read the comics. My next recommendation is not cheating in the same way as the Discworld recommendations are, where you're actually telling me to read 2 books, and not cheating in the way that the Anthony Horowitz recommendations are, where I'm giving you 2 books and telling you to read one of them. I am recommending Binti, the complete trilogy. And it sounds like I'm recommending you a trilogy of novels. I am not, as you can see by the length. Binti is a trilogy of novellas.
Right?
Novellas. And this has an additional story. So this is actually 4 novellas. Maybe Night Masquerade is more of a short story. But this was the first Nnedi Okorafor book that I ever read, and Nnedi Okorafor is now one of my favorite authors, one of my favorite sci-fi authors. I do have to say, as much as I have enjoyed all of Nnedi Okorafor's work, starting at Binti does kind of mean I have never given any Nnedi Okorafor book 5 stars except for Binti. None of them have lived up to Binti yet. They're all still good. You should read all of Nnedi Okorafor. But this truly is just transcendental in terms of her work, in terms of sci-fi. If you haven't read sci-fi in a while, I think that you'll be very intrigued and engaged by this, because it's very unique. This is also my compromise for not making you read Dawn by Octavia Butler, which I do still think you should read.
It's on my list.
But this is a little more digestible than Dawn. It's also, I think, very... most likely, I don't know for sure, but it's probably very heavily inspired by Dawn. But this is a trilogy of novellas about a girl who basically is going off to Space University. And I do mean Space University. She's leaving planet Earth to go to university in space. And this university has aliens at it. Like, it's a big intergalactic hub of learning. But her spaceship on the way there, gets attacked by aliens, and she has to navigate that situation, and then things just kind of spiral from there. I love the main character, Binti. I love Okwoo. I can't say anything more about Okwoo without spoiling the entirety of the first novella, but I love him. Binti is really good. And if you just read them one novella at a time, really short.
So my next selection for you, because we're still in the world of comics, but now we are going to the world of manga.
Ooh.
That said, I had 2 manga that I wanted to expose you to. The first of them being, because I really considered saying, I want you to read a part of One Piece. I elected not to have that. I decided...
Mostly because you know I am going to read One Piece eventually.
Eventually.
You got me to read the Cosmere, and it seems like everybody who gets drawn into the Cosmere also gets drawn into One Piece at some point. It'll happen.
It's like a cosmic orbit sort of thing. But I want you to read Akane Banashi. If not up to current publishing, just up through an arc that will be later specified by the editor.
That's me, and I won't know, so you're gonna have to specify to the editor.
I will attempt to do so.
Okay.
So, Akane Banashi is... because it runs in Shonen Jump, and it's a very fascinating story. I told you I got really frustrated because there was a story that was canceled for very good reasons.
That one, yes.
That, basically it was doing, sort of performance art as, like, sort of shonen drama.
Oh, is this the one about, I forget the name of the art form, but about the Japanese... Rakugo, the runabout Japanese live theater.
Because it's kind of like a multi-part thing for me. Because first was the story that we don't speak of.
Yes.
And that getting canceled for reasons that can't be argued with.
It should have been canceled.
Absolutely. And that was frustrating because I'd been looking for a story to scratch that itch for a while. And then Tenmaku Cinema came around. Tenmaku Cinema was great. It was about a bunch of high schoolers putting together a scrappy film. And it stopped after 20 chapters. Either the author, it's the Food Wars guy. Either the author wasn't planning on continuing it, or it just didn't have the legs that it needed in Jump to keep going. But that stopped, and I was very sad. Akane Banashi is not the best of all of those stories, but it is the one that has survived. So
it's the one that's still going.
Watch it get canceled like the week after I say that.
Oh.
But such is the life of a Shonen Jump manga. But Akane Banashi, it takes that shonen formula, because you've kind of seen good shonen by virtue of being in the same room as me while I watch my shows. Akane Banashi is sort of taking that formula of, like, main character who's, like, escalating in strength and power and going against stronger opponents and has this big sweeping character-driven goal, and it applies it in the same way that shonen sports anime do to
a
an activity like that.
Activity.
It's, I believe Mother's Basement is the one who calls it non-battle battle anime. And Akane Banashi is a really good one of those. To me, if you are going to make a story like this about performance art, because this is the thing that so many things like this screw up. See, now that I'm talking about manga, I'm going to talk way longer.
I'll cut it, don't worry.
The thing about most pieces of media that try to depict some form of performance art is they do all of the focus, like, on the build-up. And then, like, the actual performance tends to be, like, if not some sort of comedy of errors routine,
then
like,
the penultimate, like, the end. Like,
yeah,
if it's
like
if it's
the
not
big
a
successful
series,
performance.
Yeah.
And
then we end there.
That's something that has always aggravated me a bit, because you've been in productions, you've been in concerts, you've been in plays.
As of you, we are performers, or
freaking not like that.
We used to be, anyway.
It's a chaotic mess where everybody is trying their darndest to get everything to go the way it's supposed to go.
And it never does.
Never.
Something always goes wrong terribly.
But this is a one-man performance art, but it goes into the weeds. The performance is the fight scene. Like, if we're going for the Shonen Battle thing...
And in Shonen Battle, you would never just have, like, 3 panels for your fight scene and then have it be done. That's not how you do fight scenes.
That's the big thing about it. Because Akane Banashi gets that. Really, the whole thing just functions very well. Akane Banashi has scratched that itch. In particular, like, when it started, I was like, this is all right. But now I'm ride or die for Akane Banashi at this point. When Akane Banashi gets canceled, I too am canceled.
I love how you say when, not if, because it's shonen, so it is when, not if.
I mean, some stories make it to the end.
All right, well, I have one more book, and I am recommending you this book for many reasons. I am recommending this book to you because it's a wonderful book. I'm recommending this book to you because I think that it's a book that everybody who's even tangentially interested in this genre should read. And I am recommending this book to you because you like Fate Stay Night.
That's another loaded statement.
Legendborn.
Legendborn.
I know it's a loaded thing to say that you like Fate Stay Night, but
I think it's a loaded thing to say that anybody likes Fate Stay Night.
listen, if you want to see somebody do Arthurian legend and Arthurian heroes fighting in the modern day well, you don't need to read Fate Stay Night, or whatever the heck it is that you do with Fate Stay Night. You can read Legendborn. We don't need to talk about Fate Stay Night. We have Legendborn.
All I can say is that like and hate are both words far too simple to convey the complexity of any person's feelings on Fate Stay Night.
I shouldn't have brought up Fate Stay Night.
You shouldn't have.
This was a mistake. You like Arthurian legends, though. Or at least you're familiar with it because of Fate Stay Night. Legendborn is one of the best YA fantasy books I have ever read. I think it is the YA fantasy book of this generation. It is so good. No, I have not read Bloodmarked yet. Shut up, I'm gonna get to it this year. I have read Legendborn twice now because I read it in 2022 and then I read it last year because I wanted to read Bloodmarked last year, so I wanted to prepare. And so I reread this, and then I just didn't read Bloodmarked after it, but I did read this. So I have read it twice. I don't regret reading it twice. It's that good. In fact, it's even better on the second read, but you should read Legendborn. It's so good. I recommended it to a friend yesterday, and I described it as Percy Jackson, but with Arthurian myth. That is a gross oversimplification. But if snippy taglines are what get you to read a book, then this is Percy Jackson, but with Arthurian myth.
To stay consistent, Arthurian legend is kind of like the most anime thing since anime.
It really is, and this book understands that.
Yes.
I would not even say that the Arthurian legend and what this book does with it is the main draw of this book. The main draw is the characters and the emotional arc that Bree goes through and the mystery of figuring out what's going on. But the magic system and the Arthurian legend is also pretty dope. But it's also about systems and their corruption and how working within them versus working without them gets you maybe different results, or how working within them can warp your ideas about certain things and biases and all types of stuff. It's a really good book. It deserves all of the stickers that get put on it, and it deserves all of the hype that it gets. Oathbound comes out this year, I think. So I definitely have to read Bloodmarked, because this is, I believe, supposed to be a 4-book series, and book 3 comes out this year. So if you read it now, and then I read Bloodmarked, and then you read Bloodmarked after me, then we'll both be caught up and we can read Oathbound together.
Hooray.
Oh.
I look forward to this one. This is probably the one I'm most looking forward to.
Good. Read it first. We also don't own Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, which is the other one that I would say read first. So read that one first.
Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow.
It's
and
Shakespeare.
Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. So my final selection for you, another selection I do not have in my hands. I am empty-handed. It is Chainsaw Man. Specifically, the first, we'll say the first leg of Chainsaw Man. Long story short, Chainsaw Man, everybody thought like, oh, Chainsaw Man's been great. It's about to end. What a perfect ending. And then it was like end of part 1 and everybody was like, So Chainsaw Man's pretty good. Chainsaw Man is what I call all heart, no brain. It is kind of this, like, the thing about Chainsaw Man is you've got to understand that, like, most of the people in Chainsaw Man are terrible people. Chainsaw Man is one of those stories that is very willing, some might argue too willing, to dip its toe into, like, really taboo subject matter just to make a character
unlikable,
do something awful. Not even like, it's so weird again, because Chainsaw Man at the end of the day is just trying to be Chainsaw Man. Really, it's,
if you are not a manga or an anime person and you don't know anything about Chainsaw Man, I don't know very much either, but it is about a guy who has some kind of demonic possession thing going on, and when he has his shonen battle scenes, he has a chainsaw for a head.
he turns into a Chainsaw Man.
It's what it sounds like,
It's a guy
with a chainsaw on his head.
Chainsaw Man is one of those stories that is truly wild in its escalation. The way that story just goes about not just its fights, but its emotional stakes and the way it expresses everything. Just that author is so good at just making you feel the way a character feels. For better or for worse. And its protagonist is, like, a terrible person, honestly, but you can't help but kind of like him because he's not totally terrible. He has some redeeming qualities, and sometimes one of those is just acknowledging that he's a piece of garbage sometimes. It's a very strange story.
The thing about shonen I think that's interesting is when you look at it from the outside, it does seem to be very premise focused. You know, this is our school for superheroes, this is our pirate journey, this is a guy with a chainsaw for a head, this is a kid with psychic powers. But the good ones are all really character driven.
Let me put it like this. In a recent fight in Chainsaw Man, ears were briefly erased from existence.
See, here's the thing. I do sometimes have an issue when you talk about Chainsaw Man because I mix it up. I get it mixed up with Jujutsu Kaisen.
Which is a similar
because
story.
The whole thing about, because I know why ears were erased from existence, because it has to do with when you defeat the demon that embodies the thing, then something weird happens, or like when you're fighting that but that's, in my brain, that's much more of a Jujutsu Kaisen thing. Who eats things? That's Jujutsu Kaisen, right?
That's both of them.
Well then.
And while I love Jujutsu Kaisen, despite some very strange translation choices in its last leg, I do think Chainsaw Man is the one, in particular, that first leg of Chainsaw Man, I think it's the first 100 or so chapters, that is going to be important. That is going to be one of those, like, seminal manga masterpieces. People are going to talk about that with stuff like Dragon Ball Z, all that stuff. Chainsaw Man is going to be up there. So, yes, the subject matter is definitely out there at times, and it is ludicrously violent, but Chainsaw Man is really good. So yeah, you are going to read it now.
I look forward
and
to it.
You can be as confused about everything as I am with me.
So I think that this is what we should do. I think we should film a 5 for 25 wrap-up video in December. The idea is kind of a full year-long thing, right? Like, neither of us are fast enough readers or consistent enough to sticking to a TBR, in my case, to have all 5 of these done by, like, March. So I say that we film a wrap-up video in early December, so that we can release it towards the end of December, updating y'all on how we did on that 5 for 25. And again, maybe if like, you know, I read Chainsaw Man, and we want to sit down and have a talk about it, we can do that. But as far as talking about all 10 books / comics / manga that we talked about today, I say we do a video at the end of the year evaluating how we did.
Let's do it.
All right. That's a plan. Well, I really enjoyed this.
I did too.
All right. I hope that you enjoyed it as well. Again, if you want to stick around and see more videos come out, we're hoping to do that a little bit more this year. I'm going to sit down and film another video right after this one where I tier rank every book that I gave 5 stars in 2024. So if you want to see that, you know what to do. You can click the YouTube buttons there. They do YouTube things. Hope to see you next time. Until then, my name is Taylor.
My name is Steven.
And we are the Bookcases.
See ya.
Bye.
Are they gone?
They're gone.
Oh. Thank God. Thank God I can finally take my pants off.